on the mystery of EgyptAir 804, former Homeland Security Advisor to George W. Bush, Fran Townsend, and former National Transportation Safety Board Chairman and CBS aviation safety analyst Mark Rosenker, who is in our London bureau. Mark, we want to start with you. Based on the fact that what you know now, what's this investigation going to be like? How long is it going to take?
Well, this is going to be a very long investigation. This is a major accident investigation, and they typically in the United States take about a year. The Egyptians are telling us that their preliminary report will come out in about a month, which is about when we will find most of the facts. There will probably be very little analysis coming in that report, but at least we will have a lot more information to be able to try to understand exactly what happened here.
So you think it could be a month before we get to the central question of whether accident versus intentional act?
Absolutely. Unless there is something which, to use a silver bullet or a smoking gun, we're going to have to wait a while to do the forensics necessary to do a meticulous, methodical examination of everything that we recover, and particularly we have to find those black boxes. They will reveal much of what we really need to know.
And Mark, what about the fact that the Egyptians are taking the lead on this? How does that affect the investigation?
Well, they're entitled to lead this investigation based on the ICAO Annex 13. ICAO, of course, is the International Civil Aviation Organization, a specialized agency of the UN. It's a treaty that all major countries that are flying aircraft sign to and agree to the rules and regulations.
Fran, I want to turn to you now on the question of terrorism. Nobody has claimed credit for this yet, usually, don't they? Or what does that tell you?
Well, you know, we're not clear what it tells us, right? So either it's odd because, of course, we've seen ISIS in the last 24 hours claim credit for attacks in Iraq, and they haven't said anything about this. Or on the other hand, we've always been concerned that if a terrorist organization developed a method, an explosive method, that they could get past screening and detection, that they might not claim credit for it because now they know that they have the ability to place a device successfully on a plane that can bring a plane down. And so it's not clear yet. You know, I would go back to what Sully said and our other colleagues. The fact is, what we need to understand are the facts. And so rather than frighten people or have people be concerned it's terrorism, you know, we saw early claims by both the Egyptians and the French that terrorism was more likely, and everyone's backed off that because what we're looking for now are facts.
Let me ask you about the Egyptians. Does it get into a place here in your experience with dealing with other countries and national security? I mean, this is called, you know, EgyptAir, that the investigation gets clouded a little bit by national interest, by national pride.
Well, and there's an example of that with an EgyptAir Flight 990 in 1999. An EgyptAir pilot intentionally downed that plane, and we got the cockpit voice recorder, and it was clear that it was an act of suicide on his part. To this day, the NTSB claimed that an act of terrorism, an intentional act, and to this day, the Egyptians claim that that was a mechanical failure. And so, absolutely, although the Egyptians, at least in this case, seem more open to the idea that it may have been terrorism.
Mark, in these kinds of investigations, is there a cost to these quick claims by politicians and others that immediately it's terrorism, and does that get in the way of the investigation at all?
Not really, because the truth is done by the scientific examination, a meticulous, methodical process that, in fact, will reveal the truth. So people can say what they wish to say, but the reality is they may look like they were ignorant of what really happened. That's the danger.
And in terms of the U.S. role in this, Mark, what is the U.S. role in this investigation?
Well, at this point, the Egyptians will be leading the investigation. The French are already participating. They have sent a number of investigators, and Airbus has sent its technicians to Cairo to begin the process of this investigation. The United States actually would have a role should they wish to participate and be invited to participate by virtue of the avionics that are on board this aircraft and the engines. The engines are part of a consortium that Pratt & Whitney is a major player in.
Fran, based on what we know, the two countries involved, France and Egypt, does that raise any red flags for you? What questions would you be looking into in terms of those airports on the terrorism question?
Well, John, I think we've got to expand sort of the question, right? This plane in the 24 hours before was in Eritrea, was in Tunisia, was in Paris, and made 2 stops in Cairo before it made that ultimate last leg of its flight. And so back to the point about the investigation, investigators are going to go all the way back to everybody who touched that plane in the last 24 hours, the security around the aircraft, the personnel who touched it, all of that. It's not just about France and Egypt, but it involves all those countries.
All right, Fran Townsend, thanks so much. Mark, thank you. And we'll be back in 1 minute with Senator Bernie Sanders. Stay with us.